Good morning, Queen Veronica. Thank you so much for joining me for the elephant in the room, that topic that is often avoided, but absolutely necessary to discuss. So thank you so much for collaborating with me on this event. And our goal is to get the message out, to help people, as well as to give them resources and tools that they need in order to help a victim or to come out of that relationship that they are in. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Queen Monica.
So today, the presenters are myself, Dr. Monica DeBro, and
Queen Veronica Pryor Faciane.
don't you love how she say her name, Veronica Pryor Faciane? Absolutely beautiful. So again, thank you so much. We want to thank everyone for registering who is here on the Zoom call with us. We want to thank all of you who are on Facebook, who are coming in, and you're going to join in on this discussion with us as well. So we're going to work on keeping up with these comments and everything from you all being present with us on this video. So we're going to move forward. And Queen Veronica, if you don't mind, I want you to share your story with others from your domestic violence relationship and your healing from that moment.
Okay. Well, first of all, once again, good morning and grand rising, queens and kings. I'm grateful to have this opportunity to share my truth and my story. And my story is encompassed along with my mother's story because I am her voice from the grave. My story began as a young child, and the perpetrator of my abuse should have been one who should have protected me and kept me and treated me how I should have been treated as the queen I am today. However, due to problems that happened in the family and problems that this specific person experienced, it carried on as a generational curse. And that's how a lot of time most people's stories begin because of something happened to their perpetrator and they carried it into their future relationships. Well, my perpetrator was my birth father, and he also abused my mother as well and my sister. My story lasted for over 28 years of my life. I experienced incestuous abuse. And for those who may not know what that is that my father, my birth father, abused me mentally, physically, sexually, and spiritually for over 28 years of my living life. And to put that into perspective, I'm only 49 years old as of now. My mother, however, did not make it out of this experience, which so many victims do not. And that's why we're here discussing our truth, because we want them to get past this cycle. We want them to learn how to end this cycle and not to let it die within them. My story begins with my father, which I didn't know was being abused as a child himself. So he started abusing me. He started at the age of 5 when he came to me and he said, "You don't want me to leave your mom, do you? You don't want me to hurt your birth sister, do you?" And my sister was just born. I'm 5. And to put that into perspective, if you have a child, look at that 5-year-old and think of their mindset at that age. What type of decisions could they possibly make at that age to protect themselves? That was instilled in me at a young age about being fearful, not learning how to respect myself and my truth. I didn't even know what my truth was because he was instilling fear. I used to be beat. I was taken advantage of financially as I got older and I started working on a constant basis. And so many people didn't even know this was going on because my birth father was a minister. We looked like the perfect household, but behind closed doors, they never knew what was going on. And that's what happens in so many families. It's behind closed doors. Now, my birth mother, my mom, she looked to me as she got older and she said, "I thought you were going to get us out of this." Imagine that weight upon my shoulder as a child when your mother tells you this type of information, when you look to her to be your strength. your guidance, your protector. So as my mother got older and we did press charges, being myself and one of my younger cousins, because he did try to touch someone else in the family. Um, he's in jail and incarcerated right now. He had over 30 years, and so he's still incarcerated. And I did that trying to protect my mother because I was told that she was still being abused. Now, how do you know that people sometimes, no matter if you take them out of the situation has been so ingrained in her mentally, physically, spiritually, that she was not able to get out of her mindset. My mom physically started shutting her own body down. And years after, about several years after him being incarcerated, she just decided to stop eating because she said, Veronica, I can't stop those thoughts of me not protecting you, of me not doing what I needed to do. That's a hurtful thing. And I did my best as a loving daughter to try to get her force fed. But by her being in her right mind, you can't take anybody's will from them.
Mhm.
And so I literally watched my mom shut her body down and die in 2015, March 23rd, because I was there when she took her last breath.
Mm.
I don't want anybody else to have to go through that experience of wanting to leave this earth because I too tried to attempt suicide in 2002. And based on the coroner's report, because I don't know if you know, but when you're declared mentally unstable, you have to be released by the coroner as being safe to go back into society. And the medications that I took, there's no way that I should be alive telling you my truth at this point in time. And all I can say is, but God. He has a plan for the things that I've been through, and I didn't understand that at the time. But now I do. Because those things that happen for me, not just to me. They
Right,
happen for a purpose.
right. So that's very good. Thank you so much for being open and
You're welcome.
transparent. And I like the fact that you said, I have to be the voice for my mother.
Hmm.
She can't be the voice for herself right now, so I have to be that voice for her.
Hmm.
So tell us about your faith walk and your journey to your healing process.
Oh, that faith walk, that journey, it's a process. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's an easy process because how you say faith without works, the Bible says is dead.
It's
And I
dead.
choose to be alive. It's a personal choice. And going through that process, I have the mental classifications are PTSD, anxiety, bipolar depression, ADHD, and stress disorders that I have. However, when you look at me today, you cannot recognize those things because of my faith walk.
Hmm.
Because of my faith walk, because I didn't tell you that story. Yes, he was a minister, but I used to direct choirs. And so I have a close relationship with God, but even though at that point in time, I used to think it was his fault because I wanted him to get me out that situation. But how many of you know that it's up to you because God gives us all a free will?
Right.
And so with my faith walk, what I started doing is gathering my thoughts and getting affirmations and started speaking life into myself because there's death and life in the power
Hmm.
of the tongue. He used to speak so many negative things over me, and it was time for me to start cleansing myself of those negative things and those negative thoughts. And so that process consists of, for me, loads of therapy, outpatient therapy, inpatient therapy, loads of intercessors, because you have to have those around you that can pray for you sometimes when you cannot pray for yourself.
Ooh, tell the truth. Yes, ma'am.
Because how you say dealing with that, there were many days that I would just lay in a bed with the lights off dark, and then I would get up on a Monday morning and act as nothing was wrong.
Hmm.
But once again, it's behind those closed doors. And we have to be mindful, not staying in the dark, but come into the light. Because when you come into the light, that's when you start to face your truth. And not to be ashamed. Now, some of you may say, well, I don't want to speak my truth where the world knows. But you know. And it's, you have to come behind those doors by working on yourself. I started doing lots of prayers and lots of meditation because it mattered. I started being mindful of the words because instead of saying, I don't think, or I'm this, or the why me. I don't know if you had this problem, Dr. Monica, but I know I went through this phase where why this happened to me. Something must have been wrong with me. And I had to get those thoughts because I cannot answer that. You will never get the answer to the why me because someone was affected, someone was connected to me that had their own issues. I had to separate myself from my perpetrator and see that I am not that person, that I was in control of me. Yes, that happened to me. Yes, that happened from someone who was hurt. But am I going to choose to continue to carry on this cycle of hurting people? Or am I going to change my mindset and say, with the mind, I serve the Lord?
Exactly.
Because if unless I learn to love myself, and that's what I truly had to do, love and forgive. Because so many people will pose the question, why so long? Why did you do this? I can't answer those questions. Because the why that I give you may not be sufficient to your liking, but it was the reason why I stayed to protect my siblings, to protect my mom, because he was abusing her. I started working financially to support them. And he was controlling the thoughts that were going in my mind, telling me I was a concubine. And to try to change all those thoughts, it took a process, it took a lot of work, but it's doable. Because when you connected to this source, anything is possible. And
I
that's
totally agree. Thank
mhm.
you so much. And you're
You're
exactly right.
welcome.
When we are connected to his source, anything is possible.
Mm,
And then I like the fact you made a statement of what decision could a 5-year-old actually make? You know, as a 5-year-old, you know, it's unfortunate that that decision was placed on you,
mhm.
but I'm thankful that you have overcome, that you choose to be alive. As you
Yes,
said, I choose to be here. I choose to be alive. I choose to allow my story
yes.
to help somebody else. And, you know, I call this the elephant in the room, and I've
Mm,
been doing it for a couple of years now, simply because this is happening in families.
yes.
It's happening to, you know, I did a post the other day. It doesn't matter your race, your color, your nationality. It doesn't matter your economic status. It doesn't matter your work profession. It does not matter who you are. Domestic violence is happening in many of our communities.
Yes, it
But
is.
yet, this is something that we want to turn a blind eye to and act as if it's not happening. And then, unfortunately, you know, we sometimes they see us as the victims as weak
Hmm.
for wanting to stay in the relationship.
Mm.
And we're going to talk about reasons why people stay a little bit
Later on.
later.
Hmm.
And then you also mentioned that your abuser was a minister. I
Yes.
can relate to that because one of my abusers, it wasn't physically abusive, but it was mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, was also a minister or a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was hard watching him pray over and pray for everybody else while his home was crumbling. And his wife had, at that time, I was his wife,
Mm-hmm.
attempted suicide.
Yes.
So I understand all the realms of that. But as you also said, people can't recognize that those are the things that we've gone through because we've taken the time to sit down, to breathe,
Hmm.
to be open,
Mm-hmm.
transparent, embrace what happened, but then at the same time, accept the counseling that we needed and receiving God's love for the forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So I truly believe those are the reasons why people can't tell. You know, there's a song, I don't look like what I've been through. And
Yes.
I'm very thankful that I don't look like what I've been through, because if I did, I would be beat down
Mm.
somewhere, you know, on drugs, somewhere just really not living according to the will that God has for me if I look like what I've been through.
Mm-hmm. And that's the truth.
So, and you know, you mentioned therapy and that we have to do the work. Absolutely. Faith without works is completely dead.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about it all day long. We can talk about wanting healing. We can talk about wanting to be rescued from the things from the past or the things that we're going through now. But if we don't take action and put the work in, we can still allow our past to hinder us,
Yes.
which is my vision statement for Love Yourself to Life. Encouraging women to embrace the essence of who they are and not allow the past to interfere with their present or their future. Because I know my past held me hostage for years. I was not able to move forward, and I felt like I was suffocating.
Yes. And I don't know about you, but it hinders you in all areas of your life. Because even when you're at work, you're still not able to give your best because you have all this weight on you.
Yep. And then something else you mentioned, but people don't see what's going on behind closed doors. I call that the stained glass window syndrome, because people are always looking at your life from the outside saying, wow, they really have an amazing life. Things are great for them. When they're not really seeing, so they're seeing the beauty of the stained glass window, but yet on the other side of that door is a woman or a man, because men are victims of domestic violence as well. So we want to make sure we acknowledge that. And children who are witnessing this domestic violence. So behind this beautiful, what they call stained glass window, because they're looking at somebody's life from the outside in. And what I say is what they actually don't realize from the inside is that those are different colors of masking tape that this woman has put up or this man has put up just to keep their life from shattering any further than what it has.
Yes.
So people look, I agree. They don't see behind the closed doors and see what's really happening, which is another reason why I tell people, get up in your friend's face and ask them, hey, how are things going? I noticed this interaction when you all were out. Or I noticed that you don't do this anymore or that. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later too, but ask them questions face to face. Because over the phone, I can be like, girl, yes, everything is fine. Life is great.
Right there.
Right. Life is great. Everything's perfect. But then if you get me face to face,
you can tell.
And you really read those signals, you can be like, no.
Something's not right. No matter what the words may say, that body language. Because you will see the insecurities. You will see the fear. You will see the hurt.
Absolutely. So in sharing a little bit of my story, I was going into my freshman year of college. And, I say this, but now, you've got children in high school who are victims of domestic violence.
Yes, you do.
It doesn't even have to reach college. They're in high school.
Middle school too, because we've seen it in middle schools.
And they're dealing with the traumas of, a relationship that is unhealthy. So I was 18. I decided I was grown. And I often say I put my big girl panties on and I moved out of my sister's house. I was getting ready to start college and I moved in with my boyfriend at the time. Now, growing up, my father was a pastor. Shacking was nowhere supposed to be in my future. But I'm living up to the term PK, right? Which is, so I moved in with him. And I don't remember when the first hit came, but I remember a lot of them, but I don't remember when the first fight actually happened. And he would beat me because of something else that happened outside of while he was at work or while he was whatever. I'd never seen this anger or aggression from him before. And I mean, none of us go into a relationship saying, okay, this is going to be an abusive relationship. Let me go into this. None of us go into a relationship with that thought or that mindset. But unfortunately, it happens. The statistics show that 1 out of every 3 women and 1 out of every, I think it's 5 men are victims. but then 1 out of every 4 women and 1 out of every 9 men are victims of severe domestic violence. And we're going to look at those numbers again later. So I found myself that 1 out of 3 in this abusive relationship, but I was 18, you know, didn't know any better, thinking that, you know, it's going to get better. And I remember episodes of him beating me. I ran into the neighbor's home because we lived in a duplex. So I ran into their home, and it was interesting that I ran there for safety, only for them to allow him in and drag me back out of their apartment or their duplex, kicking and screaming. No call to the police, no help, no nothing. And it's unfortunate that people will see things happening, but yet turn a blind eye. Now, I totally understand that, you know, in order for a person to want to get out of a relationship, they have to be the one to take that step. You know, but looking back, I'm like, I wish somebody would have saved me. I wish somebody would have helped me. I've been stabbed, shot at, and I literally have a stab mark in my right arm, and that was to protect one of my abusers from stabbing me in the heart, because they were coming toward my heart. And I had to protect myself. And I have an iron mark on my left leg from an abuser deciding that that's what he wanted to do at that time. So it's really been, at that time, difficult. And up until I got ready to start my healing, it was just difficult, and I held on to those things that happened to me in the past. I didn't value my self-worth, didn't value who I was, and that's what kept me in my relationships for as long as I did. You know, I had one abuser who would take me out in the field and beat me with a whip. And it wasn't until years later that I realized that what he was beating me with was what the herdsmen keep their cattle in line with. You want to talk about a painful experience. That was painful. It was hurting. And, you know, I don't know if you ever felt like this, Queen Veronica, but did you ever have that thought of, if you love me, the way the words come out of your mouth saying that you love me, why are you doing this to me?
I sure did, Queen Monica, especially from the person who was supposed to protect me. Because like you say with the beatings, I know of those beatings as well. And it's like I would go, when I got older, I would wear a lot of shades because of the black eyes to try to cover the pain. And then a lot of times it would be, and this is a little graphic, so I want to give this disclaimer. One time he went in anally, and it was hurting so bad, and I was bleeding. I would just go wash myself till I wash myself raw, because I just felt so dirty. And even the stories of my mom, like you say, with the beatings. One time I remember I got a call to come back to New Orleans because I had moved to Baton Rouge at that time. He beat her so bad that both of the arteries in the back of her brain had severed. Her body was physically shutting down, and it was doing, you know, releasing different body fluids. The doctor said that he knows he did something, and he was trying to talk to me, but he doesn't have any physical proof because of the way the trauma was. It showed no outside marks. And he said, based on what he's telling me, it's not adding up. But I have no proof. And he's looking at me. I've been beat too. There was no way I was going to say anything because he had ingrained that fear in me that he would hurt me. So, Queen Monica, trust me, I do. I can. I remember the abuse. I remember it. I remember it.
And it's really difficult when you know, you're in the situation and people are like, why don't you get out? Well, our mindset at that time is not in getting out. they say that, we're hoping that the abuse will change. We're hoping that the person will change. And then we're going to talk again, we'll talk some more about reasons why people stay. Right. So reasons why people stay. But, I'm really thankful that I didn't allow the things of my past, or God, let me correct that. God didn't allow the self-destruction that I had started doing because of the things from my past to take me out. Because Lord, just like you, I attempted suicide as well. And I'm just thankful that he had a better plan for me that did not go through, it was not fulfilled. Because even on the night that I attempted suicide, and it's interesting that both of us took pills.
Yes.
Took pills. So I'd taken some pills after I finished teaching the class. And it's interesting because the class was on health and wellness. So I was teaching students how to be healthy mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, going through all of these different dimensions of health and wellness. At the same time, I am knowing that at the end of this 5-week session of teaching this class, I had this plan to commit suicide. But my mind was so caught up in thinking about the students that I wanted to make sure I finished the class so they wouldn't say during the class that their instructor was a hypocrite. It didn't matter to me what they said as long as I finished the class, right? So when you're in a broken state, your thoughts do not align the way that they should. And if a person has never been in a broken state, they may not ever understand that aspect. They may consider us, you all are weak. No, when you're broken and you've been broken so much to the point that you can't even formulate your thoughts right, and the thoughts that you're having are not healthy thoughts.
They're sporadic. They're all over the place.
All over the place. You're making rash decisions. Things are not going, as you planned. But I took these pills with the expectation of crashing on my way home, killing myself. As a nurse, you would think that I would have thought about the other people who were driving on the road. Again, when you're in a broken state, your thought process is not clear. I didn't think about the other people who were on the road until years later when I was reflecting back on that moment. But Queen Veronica, I typically when I take one sleeping pill or half a sleeping pill, I'm asleep within 15, 20 minutes. I pretty much doubled what I normally would take and thought, oh, this will take effect real quick and I'll be gone. My ride home was at least about 20, 25 minutes. I remember every landing mark as I was driving home, wide awake, alert, no pills taking effect. I remember specifically getting to I-10 and I-17 overpass in Phoenix. And I was probably then about 10 minutes from home. My thought process was, these pills are not working. Now I have to figure out plan B. You would have thought that since they weren't working, I would not have concocted a plan B and I would have said, okay, Lord, what's your plan? Again, broken mindset. So I said, okay, when I get home, I'm going to let the garage down, keep the car on, go to sleep, let the pills take effect, go to sleep, and that'll be it. Queen, I remember driving into my neighborhood, and literally my house was 3 houses in once you turned into the neighborhood. I remember driving into my neighborhood. I don't remember anything after that. And it wasn't until 2014, when I was writing my first book, Broken Believer No More, God told me, he said, it wasn't meant for you to remember. Had I remembered and been awake enough to drive into my garage, I would have been awake enough to remember to let the garage down, leave the car on, and go to sleep. He told me it was not meant for you to remember. I woke up at about 2 or 3 o'clock that morning with my ex-husband coming to the stairs, because I had fallen asleep on the stairs going upstairs. I didn't even make it all the way upstairs. I made it in the house, turned the corner in the house, and was halfway up the flight of stairs, and I fell asleep. When he woke me up, I had my purse on my arm, my bag that I used for teaching class, and I had this huge 3-ring binder in my arm, sleep, when he woke me up. Tell me that wasn't God saving me. I would not be here today had it not been for him saving me from my self-destructive behavior.
Yeah,
you talked about your father, your protector, being a minister. Well, with that, it was probably about 2 or 3 days later when I told my ex-husband that I had attempted suicide. His response to me was, and I'm going to encourage everybody, do not make this response, whether it is the first time somebody says that they're attempting or thinking about suicide, or they've attempted, whether it is the 10th time they've said it, please believe them. Because my ex-husband's response to me was, you always talk about suicide, so why should I be bothered? Why should I care? So it does not matter, people, whether it is their first time saying it or their 10th time saying it. Always believe them. Take action. Get them some help, to some counseling or something to help them. So I'm looking at some of the comments in here. Holly Ayers says, I'm so sorry that these horrible things happened to the two of you beautiful queens. I thank God that he brought you through stronger, wiser, and better. God bless. So thank you, Holly, so much for your comments. We're truly grateful that God did save us, and that he did keep us from causing harm to ourselves, because we need women like us, as well as men, to be open, to be transparent about their stories and share, because it can help somebody else. Okay. Anything else, Queen Veronica, before we move to our next slide? I'm going to see if we have any. I don't see any questions from our attendees here today. So those of you who are attending us via Zoom, feel free to post your questions in the chat room, and we will get to those as well. All right, so we're going to move forward. So why victims stay? There are numerous reasons why victims stay. One of them I've already mentioned. They think that the abuser's behavior is going to change. And while I'm saying this, let me make a disclaimer as well. This is my past. It is not my present. It is not my future. My story is totally different from somebody else's. And the reason why I say that is because I still have contact with one of the people in my life who was an abuser at the time. We get along fine. We have good conversation when it's needed to be had. So disclaimer, I have nothing ill will, no anger, no unforgiveness toward any of my abusers from the past. Again, there's only one that I keep in contact with a couple of times throughout the year. We're good, we're fine. So please don't, take any necessary negative feelings toward anyone that I've had a relationship with. So let me put that out plain and clear. So we're good. Okay. Because sometimes, Queen Veronica, people be like, oh, you did this to her? She was 18 when she was dating you. Or
you were wrong.
Right. Or I know she was dating you too. So let me just, no. We don't need all that. That's not the purpose of this session.
Discussion, no.
That is not the purpose of this discussion. I'm good. So.
Yes, and that's like even with me, because most people will say, I will hate him and I can't stand him. And this is going to be strange to say, but I feel sorry for him, even though the perpetrator did all those things, because I'm looking at, once I went through the different studies and going through schooling, because I have my degree as a life coach. That's what my master's is in. And after going through mindset training and learning the traits of a narcissist and how they become what they are, I feel sorry for him because he has not changed. I go through, I think it was just last year, he tried to go on parole again. And his mindset, he's blaming a dead woman, my mom. it's her fault. So he still had a mental. He will not, and it's sad to say, but a lot of people say that those people who mess with children, those type of abusers, a lot of times their minds don't change.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to believe that he would because I'm thinking this man knows the Bible. He knows this. He knows how to get himself out of this.
Yeah.
No.
It's people, and I'll say this because I've known it to happen to several pastors' wives.
Mm-hmm.
People look at pastors' wives and look at pastors and put them on a pedestal.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they say, "Ooh, I want her life," or "I want his life."
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, and this is going to sting for some people, but it's reality because I know of other pastors' wives who've been in abusive relationships.
Yes.
Pastors can be abusers as well.
Yes,
Pastors' wives can be abusers. So we need to not put people on pedestals and, desire their life because we have no idea what they're going through. Mm-hmm. And then I want to talk about, and I forgot to mention it earlier, emotional abuse. Queen Veronica, I did not realize that I was it wasn't even a relationship. It was more of a friendship. Mm-hmm. I had a friend, lived out of state. We would chit chat, talk. And the person would always say, that ain't got nothing to do with me. That's not my fault. And it's like, huh? It was an emotional disconnect in the friendship.
Yeah.
And I remember calling one day because a friend of mine had died. I just needed somebody to talk to. And the person was like, I'm hosting an event right now. I don't have time to talk to you. Find somebody else to talk to. And I was like, are you serious? So that was literally the last conversation that I had with the person. And it wasn't until, well, I take that back. It wasn't the last time because I got a phone call several months later and I was teaching a class, so I missed the call. And I thought, you know what, I'm not calling back. There's nothing ever, anything happy that happens when I talk to this person. So I'm not calling. Mm-hmm. Because you have to learn to avoid
boundaries.
The areas. Right.
Boundaries.
Yes. So, but then the person called back as I was on my way to a coaching session with the person who was coaching me. And when they called back the same day, I'm thinking, maybe something's wrong and I just need to answer the phone. Mm-hmm. So I answered the phone because I don't ever want, people to call and then find out something was drastically wrong. Because I've had people call me right as they were thinking of suicide and I just be able to talk to them and get to them. Yeah. So I answered the phone. And I'll just put it this way. By the time I hung up the phone, maybe 5 or 10 minutes later, I was literally shaking inside. And at that point, I realized that I had been in an emotionally abusive friendship.
That was toxic.
That was toxic. I got to my coaching session, and by the time I sat down, I was in full-blown tears. And I'm very thankful for my coach because she saw me and she just said, let's just take a moment. Mm-hmm. She sat across the table and she said, just take a moment and just breathe. We'll get started when you're ready. And then when we did start, she said, okay, can I pray before we get started? So that whatever it is that's going on, it can be loosed. Because she had never seen me that way, never. Mm-hmm. And once I got through talking to her and we got through walking it out, and I said, I've been in an emotionally abusive friendship. We got through walking that out. When I left that coaching session, I had that off my chest and I had other things planned to get ready for our next meeting. So men and women, be careful of the relationships that you are in, whether it is professional, whether it's personal, friendship, or intimate. Your emotions matter. Mm-hmm. If you're the one always giving off love, giving off kindness, encouragement, giving off all positive, but you're not getting it back.
You have to watch those energies that you're in.
Mm-hmm. That's a one-way relationship. And at some point, you're going to feel drained and your cup is not going to be getting fulfilled in that relationship.
Yeah.
So, all right, back to this part. Why victims stay? Again, We think that the abuse is going to stop. Unfortunately, we're told he's taking care of you.
Yes.
Stay in the relationship. Look
Relationship.
what you have. You know, people start looking at the material things that you have in a relationship and say, oh, you just need to stay.
Or you can have threats too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, so they tell you to stay. The abuser threatens you, threatens to kill, you know, your children, threatens your family. You know, if you don't have any children, but you have a loving pet, or you have both, they threaten to kill the pet.
Yeah.
They threaten to pull financial, and then they use I had an abuser who used to tell me, before me there was none, after me there'll be none.
Mm-hmm. I've heard that too.
Yeah, so in that, it's like you don't have anywhere to go, you don't work, you don't have this, you don't have that, so what are you going to do?
Because they're controlling you.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can have the situation where you hear the stories of people that have decided to leave, and then you go into the courts, and the courts make you still come in contact with your abuser, with these unsupervised visits, placing your children. And so you sometimes people just think, because I've heard the stories, it's better if I just stay.
Mm-hmm.
Because at least I won't be struggling financially if I still have to deal with this person.
Exactly. Yep. So you know, they stay because of shame, regret,
Yes.
feeling lost, or feeling like they're going to be judged. So it's many reasons why
People stay.
why victims stay.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness, you know, forgiveness, not everybody's going to be able to forgive their abuser.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody's going to be able to forgive. I mean, and that's just the reality of it, Queen
That's just
Veronica.
life. Yeah, that is.
Yeah,
It's life.
they're not going to be able to forgive. But for some of us, we're able to forgive, we're able to move on. But also, we need to make sure we look at forgiveness of self,
Yes,
because it's not your fault for being a victim.
Yeah.
So we hold on to that unforgiveness of self, because we allowed it to happen to us. So we have to be careful of making sure um, that we forgive ourselves as well. Go ahead, Queen.
Yes, there's a question that says, what role did your family play in your support or awareness of the situation?
That's what, you know what, I'm glad you went into that. I'm like, that's why I was slowing down in my talk, because I was like, I see chat. So let's see. Okay, go ahead, Queen.
Now I can say for me, most people that are victims, they separate you. So we were kept because, say for instance, like as a child, my family, we used to go to cousins that were older cousins that used to babysit us. Well, when one of my aunts, my father's mother's sister, started questioning him about some things, because my cousin talked to me in my adult life, and she said, we started noticing y'all becoming more secluded and not really talking. It used to be outgoing, and when I would come to babysit you, y'all would just sit there like zombies. And so I told my mom something was wrong, and so he kind of kept us from other family members. So we didn't go places. He kept us from friends. He would know I didn't really have a normal childhood. I didn't get to go to prom. I didn't get to do these things because he kept us all in this bubble. So he can have control over everything that was going on within our lives. And it was kind of funny because on my wedding night, I told my husband everything that had happened to me because he didn't know. And then he told me he kind of felt something because of things that he was doing. Well, he still, once I told my husband these things, he said, you must have beat her or something, or you did something to her, because she just wouldn't volunteer that information, because he knows all the things that he did to me to keep me suppressed from talking, because those were the things that he did. So we weren't allowed out. We were kept close. So the family was, if the family was aware, they would tell me now, we thought something was wrong, but no one ever came forward. In my opinion, no one ever came to say, okay, let's get these children out, let's try to question, because I was questioned as I got older. Well, why you didn't say anything? I was scared. He started from 5, beating me daily. to tell me to teaching me to keep this to myself. So it's like the Bible does say, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not or she will not depart. How was I going to depart if that's the way I was trained? And so I had to get my mindset straight.
Yeah.
So what happened with you, Queen Monica, with your family and your support system in your
I will tell
situation?
you, it was my dad when I'll put it this way. As you get older or your parents get older, they will say whatever comes out of their mouth. So I'm not going to tell you the version that my daddy said.
You're going to give us the radio version.
Yeah, give you the radio version.
Give you the radio version.
I'll tell you, Walter Deborah will say some stuff, but I'm going to give you the radio version. He got in the car one day and said, you don't have to stay there with that. You can come live with us. It was a whole lot of extra choice words in that. But I'm just going to, yeah. So he acknowledged what was happening and was like, you just need to come home. So that's the, the support that I got. And that really was an eye opener when your dad says, you don't deserve that. He's not doing anything for you. You need to come home.
That's a blessing.
And that was one of my eye openers there for me of getting out of a relationship that was unhealthy. So, all right. Dynamics of domestic violence. So there's no typical victim. I've already mentioned this earlier. You can't really look at someone and say, oh, they will never be a victim of domestic violence, because truthfully, we can never stop anyone from saying or stop anyone from hitting us or saying negative things to us. But now that I know better, and now that I want to help other people to do better, all it takes is that one time. And it's time to go.
Yes.
But I didn't know that back then. I accepted whatever came to me. I accepted whatever happened to me back then. So typical victim, no. Not asked for or brought upon by the victim. Victims don't ask, to be hit.
Abused. No, they don't.
To be abused, whether it's hit, stalking, rape, whether it is emotional abuse, financial abuse, holding back on finances and those things. Nobody asks for that. And then there's power and control. So there's, the power and control. I want power over you in this situation, and I'm going to control it. And the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence actually has a power and control wheel that we can add into the links a little later for people to access that as well.
Queen Monica, did you notice, like with your abusers, because how you say hindsight, once our minds became more clear and we were able to control our thoughts, with my abuser, with the power and control, I noticed that the reason why he had this desire to be controlling and powerful is because of his inability to control the situation that happened to him growing up. And so by him feeling that he had lost that control, he wanted to make sure that he didn't lose control anymore with anything else, because he would always have this gruff voice and always would show this domineering mentality. However, once the things came out, he started spilling his guts, because the detective said that they went through so many reels of tape, it's like he was purging himself. Because when it came in contact with another man, then he bowed down. But he wanted to be domineering over women.
Mine was more so as a method of beating into submission. So one was that realm. The other one was a realm of, I didn't have a good day, so I'm going to take it out on you.
Yes, I've seen that too.
So I've had both of those. And the other one was just pure, the one that was not physical, but just emotional. It was just pure, I don't even know how to describe that one. Because like I said, you don't realize that you're in that type of relationship sometimes because it's so subtle.
Yes.
And then it's like, when you start reflecting back, you think, wait a minute. But as you were talking, I did remember one occasion where my abuser had jumped on me. A friend of mine was with me. And I don't know what happened, that he fell into the trunk of the car. but I literally closed the lid down and drove him to the police station.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he may have spent 1 or 2 nights in jail, and then of course he was out. You know, but for some reason that came to me as you were talking about, you know, them wanting to have that control or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had chose to jump on me in front of a friend of mine. And I think he had been drinking or something. And one of the things, he winded up in the trunk. I just closed it down and drove him to the police station. And they were like, what is going on? I'm like, here, you can have him. And here's my statement. Here's me making a report.
Mm-hmm.
So power and control, they definitely want that power. They want that control. And then I'm sure that you experienced this too, where it will be in the honeymoon phase. Everything will be all great.
Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry. I'm doing all these nice things because he would take and buy little gifts like from my mom, or would have me buy 'em and then give it to us. Baby, I love you. You know, you mean the world to me. And for some women, especially if that might have been their first love, that's all they know.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they came up, because one thing that I do notice with some dynamics, because like your father was there, but for those whose fathers weren't there, sometimes they go looking for love in all the wrong places in their subconscious. They don't know they're doing it because they're trying to find that father figure. And so when you're looking for different men, you want somebody to be, because like women want to be protected, even though you're independent. Because I'm independent, I could take care of myself.
But I want to be protected.
But I still like being protected. But I still can take. But you know what I mean? Because how you say God made us to be their real, to be their support. So that part, you like, I can't suppress that. And those that say, well, yes, I can do it myself. You may can do it by yourself, but you may not want to do it by yourself because you like to be wined and dined. You like to be treated like a queen. You like to be treated special. At least I do.
I do too. And you know, it's just a blessing to be in a healthy relationship.
Yes.
It is such a blessing to be in a healthy relationship.
Because we're going to have that conversation too, to talk to them about how you say this will be a whole nother thing on how to have a healthy relationship after domestic violence.
Well, we were definitely playing that one. So we'll get on that one as soon as we get done. All right. So, and you know, you said we need to have that relationship. And I'm like, yep, as soon as we get done, because the reality is, again, we go back to it being the elephant in the room, that topic that's often avoided but necessary to discuss. We have to make sure we keep staying on the forefront of it, because somebody who needs to hear it is going to hear it. And I truly understand and I agree with your statement of how to have a healthy relationship after an abusive relationship, because ladies, it's possible. Gentlemen, it is possible. But just like you said earlier, you have to do the work. You don't want to go from an unhealthy relationship and then right into another relationship because you've not done the work that it needs for you to be healed and for you to be prepared to give positive input into a positive relationship.
And so you don't want to destroy your children, and you don't want to destroy, because that could destroy children too, because of your unhealthy things that you have in you. So
right. So you definitely want to make sure you go through the healing process. And here's the thing: the healing process is not easy. It's going to be rough, and I'm not going to placate it and say, oh, just go through your healing process, you're going to be good. No, that healing process is going to be rough because it's going to peel back layers
like an onion
that you didn't right. It's going to peel back those layers that you forgot about, that you have to deal with in order to heal, to get ready to be restored.
Yes.
So anything hidden cannot be healed. All right, so types of abuse. So controlling where you go, what you do,
who you talk
to, the conversations you can have. I remember standing by a friend at a party and we were talking about something and he leaned over to her and said, stop talking about that. And she literally just stopped talking. It's like, we're having a girlfriend conversation. It wasn't anything disrespectful. It wasn't anything, negative. It was just fun conversation. And he basically, told her stop having that conversation. And it was interesting to watch. So, and of course we did have a conversation about it later. Control over the finances.
Yes.
So even if a woman or man and they're the victim. They go to work. They may not ever see their money from the work that they did because the abuser is controlling the finances, controlling the debit card, controlling the credit card, withholding money that's necessary for necessities.
Yes.
And then also controlling their sleep. Don't let their victim get enough sleep because they're always, harassing or doing things like that. Humiliating them in front of friends. I've seen that happen. So then, of course, there's physical abuse, hitting, slapping, kicking, anything that's physical that causes abuse. Now, just as you said, Queen Veronica, and I'm glad you brought that up, that an abuser can cause pain, but you don't see bruises.
Yes.
Just as with your mother when they severed the arteries. They couldn't see anything physically wrong with her, no bruises or anything like that, but they knew something had happened. So abusers are very, very manipulative
and cunning,
to where they can cause physical abuse, but you may not see any bruises. And then, we have this somewhere else in another slide, but you start to notice that your friend all of a sudden start to wear scarves around their neck, or where they wear long sleeves
all the time,
very hot. Yes. So you see changes like that, or they start to wear makeup. Okay. Me, I don't wear makeup often. And, if you start to see me wearing, which thank God, I don't even have to worry about that now. But in the past, if you had started seeing me wearing a lot of makeup and trying to cover things up, right, or scarves, because I don't really like to wear scarves, then that should be a signal to you to say, did you change your style or what, what's going on with you? Sexual abuse. And then along with sexual abuse, I read in an article last year about reproductive abuse. So they keep the woman pregnant to keep her from having an affair.
Yes, I've heard about that.
It's called reproductive abuse. Sexual abuse can be rape, requiring the victim to have sex with multiple partners, requiring the victim to have sex with other people for money. So sexual abuse can
go through a gamut of different,
emotional abuse and intimidation. With the intimidation, they're using threats of more harm and intimidating them to stay within the relationship. Isolation. So Queen Veronica, in yours, you already mentioned that you were isolated. From other family and friends. So what the victims will do is they'll move the person away from their family or friends, or they'll start isolating them to where they're not showing up for different events. They're not present. So isolation is one of the tactics that they will use. And then also what they'll use is, so-and-so was talking about you. So now what happens to the victim? They don't want to talk to this person who can actually be a support. Because the abuser has said, so-and-so was talking about you, which is non-true.
How you say they don't want you to have any friends. They don't want anyone to be that listening ear and that voice of reason. For you to start thinking your way through it. They try to keep, how you say, as he used to say, he used to tell my husband, I'm going to teach you how to keep your foot on her neck. And he was like, Doc, what are you talking about? Keep your foot. But that was his mentality. You keep them down.
Exactly. Verbal abuse, coercion, threats, and blame. So, with this, we've talked about the other two, but blame. They blame the victim. This is your fault. This is happening because of X, Y, Z. And, it's unfortunate that for some victims, no matter how clean they keep their home, no matter how much they make sure the home is prepared for when the abuser comes home, that abuser is going to find something wrong to, start that abuse. And then right now with COVID-19, we have to be even more prayerful for the victims, because if their abuser is working from home, then they have no hours of escape.
Yes. I pray for that every day because we just had a young woman that passed not too long ago in our area that died from abuse, and her abuser, I think, got out on bond for $750, and he wound up killing her. And so it's heartbreaking when you see those types of things that's going on in the world with even with the children. My heart goes out for those because they may be having sexual abuse problems because of being home all the time. Because school used to be that outlet, because that was what it was for me. Because I was an overachiever, and that's another sign of victims. Because sometimes people think, well, they may be secluded and not want to say anything. Well, I was one who was an overachiever. I stayed on the honor roll. I did these things. So people did not know
Mm-hmm.
that was a sign.
That was your positive outlet.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That was your positive outlet. Using male privilege, I'm the male.
Yeah, I saw that one a lot.
Yeah, also female privilege, because like I said, we have females who are abusers as well. Yes. And then we already talked about economic abuse, where, they hold out on the finances in the relationship so that the victim does not have access to any money or funds. Mm-hmm. All right, statistics. I think I said 1 out of 5 earlier, it's 1 out of 4. Mm-hmm. So 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men. So National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, they separate the severe intimate partner physical violence versus another level of intimate partner violence, which just may be your hitting, your
verbal,
your slapping, your verbal, and all of that. 1 in 10 women are raped by their intimate partner. And, sometimes people may think, they may think, well, this is my wife, or this is my fiance, or this is my girlfriend. It's not considered rape. It is considered rape when the person says no. Mm-hmm. And you still force yourself on that person to have sex. It is rape. Yes. 20 per minute. So every 20 minutes, someone is abused or by their partner. Mm-hmm. There's 10 million per year. And then there's 20,000 calls per day to the hotline for domestic violence. And then as of yesterday, there have been 402 gun-related domestic violence deaths to date. So, we pay attention to a lot of things that's happening right now in the world. Yes. And because we paying so much attention to that sometimes we forget about these other things that have been going on for years. Mm-hmm. That still need to be addressed, which is why I'm glad that you agreed to have this conversation with me, because it needs to be said out in the forefront, and it needs to be addressed. It needs to, be talked about, because if you've got 1 out of every 3 women, and if you have 1 out of every 4 men who are victims of domestic violence, somebody in your neighborhood, somebody in your church, somebody in your work environment, somebody in the gym that you go to, well, not too many people going to gyms now, but somebody on the walking trail. Mm-hmm. Somebody, college students are victims. And, I would hope that if you see someone being abused, that if you do nothing else, call 911. Mm-hmm. I remember being in the parking lot, coming out of a store one day, and I saw this, it was an SUV, it was a man, and all I saw was this. So I called 911 because I knew what was happening. He was beating this woman in this car, and I called 911, got in my car, called 911, told them where we were at, and I drove around, and he must have seen me driving around to get the license plate number to give to the police, to give them an accurate, accurate description of the truck and the license plate, and they drove off. Well, as they were driving off, me being the one that wanted to help this woman but not put myself in danger, I followed them, and I'm telling the police where they are, where they're going, and sure enough, I turned the corner and the police had stopped them, and he was in handcuffs.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, even if you do nothing else but call the police, don't ignore it.
Yes.
My nephew and I were riding bicycles in Phoenix one day, and it was a dry ditch, and these two teenagers were down, where she was 20, he was 18.
Mm-hmm.
And they were yelling and arguing, and he hit her. And without thinking, I just jumped off my bicycle and ran down in the ditch and started talking to her. And we started walking back to her where she lived, and he's following us. And he's like, ma'am, I'm not going to hit her again. I'm not going to do this again. So I'm talking to her, trying to get her to just kind of wake up and see what's happening. And she said, he's not going to do it again, you know. And I'm asking her, I'm like, do you want him to follow you? Because she was going home. And I was kind of like between two places, because I had my nephew over here, and then I had this, and my nephew sitting there looking like, I can't believe this is happening. So long story short, I had to, she went on and went home. Where he went, I don't know, but I got her home. And then she had to make the decision on her own again as to whether she allowed him to come back for a visit or whatever. But typically I don't jump in and get involved, but for some reason that day I just jumped off the bike and ran in the ditch. So I'm not ever telling anybody to put yourself in harm's way. But at least speak up. You know, if you're the victim, speak up. If you know somebody who's in it, you know, try to get them some resources, some help. And I'm getting ahead again, Queen Veronica.
But sometimes, how you say, when you're getting them the help and when you're listening, sometimes all they want is a listening ear. Because you can pass your opinion about what you should do, but unless you're in that situation, you really don't know what you would do.
Exactly. So let's see. Laura Carter's asking, did you think this person was your friend even during the abuse? So Laura, which person are you referring to? Did you think this person was your friend even during the abuse?
Well, I know, like from my father, I kept having the hopes that he would change. I kept having the hopes that he would treat me like a little girl wanted to be treated, like a princess. So it wasn't until maybe 5 years after his incarceration and seeing him not changing that I said it appears that he's been changed into a reprobated mind. So I had to let that go, and I had to focus on me, because I even called the prison system to see if he was getting therapy, because I really wanted him to change.
But you know, in reality, we have to remember that sometimes they're not going to change.
That's their walk. And I had to learn, I had to have my walk.
Pride sometimes does not allow people to change. Not acknowledging their behavior allows people, you know, keeps people from changing. So I'm, you know, Laura, I'm not sure if I ever thought of my abuser as a friend. I know that, you know, I thought it was somebody to love me. And you know what? I'm gonna come back to that, because, you know, I've been in relationships, but Queen Veronica, do you know, I've never really, up until this point and where I am right now in the relationship I'm in now, I don't remember ever thinking of the person that I was dating or married to as being my friend.
I think now, Queen Monica, our definition of a friend has changed, because back then we had a different perception of ourselves. And so even when you're teaching, when I teach my children, you don't use the word friend lightly, because that's a very impacted word. It comes with a lot in it. And so to say a friends wouldn't do that.
Right.
And so even a father, for me, I don't call him father or that. He's my birth dad. He's the one that consummated with my mom, and then I was born. But to say a father, fathers wouldn't do that. And so to me, that's almost like in conjunction with a friend. To say that was a friend, I don't know that.
Yeah. So that's another conversation we're gonna have. Friends. How many of us have
Have
them?
them. I like that.
Okay. How many of them can we actually depend on? Because you're right. Back in the day, we used to use that word kind of loose. But
Yeah.
now it's like, I
That's a
actually
heavy
had somebody,
word.
right. I actually had somebody say, I'm your friend. I did not respond to the person.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on the telephone. And it was like, I'm your friend. I was like, because I know what I expect in friendship.
Mm-hmm.
I know how I value friendship. And it's not that you have to prove anything to me, but when I see your behavior in some ways, I know we can be acquaintances.
Yes.
But
A
friends, yeah,
friend?
no. Because
Yeah, nah.
one thing, look, we done got on a whole nother subject. But one thing for me, I'm not a gossiper. I don't gossip. So if I get in somebody's presence and I hear them as a gossiper,
Then I know they're
I
talking
already
about
know.
me.
Huh?
Then they're talking about me too, just not in
Oh,
my
it's
presence.
happened. Yep, it's happened. Where the person I was like, yeah, no. So yeah, that we're gonna do another episode, you all, friends. How many of us have them?
Yes.
Right. That's coming up. So we're gonna do relationships, then we're gonna do friendships. We're gonna build this out. All right, Queen, you want to talk about the tactics of abuse?
Yes. Okay. Making accusations or criticizing. Now, a lot of things that I used to see in our situation is like my mom was very shapely. She had the Coke bottle shape. And so if they were going somewhere, sometimes I would see him, well, who is that? Who are you talking to? Especially if it was a male. That was just somebody saying hi. Where you know them from? You must be doing this and you must be doing that. They want to accuse you of things because a lot of times the very thing that they're accusing you of is the very thing that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, you're the guilty party, but they want to place the blame on you and criticize you. Once again, that's to tear down your character. Because just like we said earlier, there's death and life in the power of the tongue. And if you keep hearing these things, they're affirming. They're affirming these things in you, where you have to learn to affirm positive affirmations within yourself. And they will use blame for abuse. That is your fault. I came home and all I wanted to do was rest. And I used to see many a plates would get thrown at my mom. I don't want to eat this. And she would be to cook something fresh because sometimes he didn't want nothing left over. And if it wasn't something he wanted, he would just throw it off the table. And then blame her for what he did, or blame me if you wouldn't have said this. Because even though I was in that with him doing that, I had a mouth that I would question, well, if you was doing this, well, why is that? And I knew I was going to get hit trying to protect my siblings because he wanted to control. Even with my mom, well, I don't want you to wear this, so I don't want you to wear that. Even if I had a sackcloth on, you would say something about it.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like it's your mindset. And it's hard sometimes for the victim to see that when they're trying to control you, that they're actually trying to control every part of you to continually break you down. You're thinking, well, no, they're just looking out for my best interest so I won't be hurt. Or so this won't be happening, when in all actuality, they're just breaking you down mentally even more. And it's like with controlling the finances. Sometimes when they done broke you down mentally, you can have access, but you know you better not touch it if you don't want to be beat.
Right. Right.
Or they will take and actually, because I know he used to do that a lot. It was like a truth or dare. I dare you to touch it. And how you say, look, in hindsight, that was extra bigoted because they have so many that they won't even give them allowance or card or anything. You're only allowed to go so far. You may be only allowed to do this, and then embarrassing people and stuff like that in front of your friends. That's just tearing you down even more so. Because like with my mom, she would be talking to people and he would give her this look, like you said, Queen Monica, about your friend that you was talking to, and he reached over and told her to end the conversation. It was just this look he would give. And you know you better cease and desist, or else it was going to be held to the high water. She was going through a closet door that night. And so it's like when you're taking them away from family and friends, because everything that she would want to do, even if it was something that was encouraging to her, it's like, no, you're not going to do that. Because even with me being in school, he used to call me white girl. Oh, you trying to be a white girl? Excuse me? Because I'm getting my education, because I'm bettering myself. Because everything that I did, my degrees, that was stuff I earned. I went to Xavier. I earned those scholarships, not you. But I was teased from him. And then, like with the abandonment, he used to tell me nobody else is going to want you. And for so long, because it started so young, that they said, even when I got older, that my insides were so messed up that I would never have children because of
But
the.
God, you
But
had some
God,
babies, some
I
beautiful
did.
babies.
I say birth 3 boys, and then God blessed me to be able to adopt my little girl. So I say I have my wonderful 4. And then another thing that your abusers do, if you don't, sometimes with your phone, if you don't answer it right when they call, you
Yes,
must be
ma'am.
doing something. I don't know if you had that experience, Monica, but it's like you have it. You so far on edge. You could go to the bathroom. You have the phone with you at all times. You could be at work.
And I literally have turned around in my car and gone home to get my phone because I left it. And then I remember an incident where I had gone to the grocery store. I hadn't been in a while. So of course, when you don't go to the grocery store, in a while, your list is kind of long. So you try to get everything that you need. So I got home, literally, my abuser ran out of the house to the car, across the yard, because I parked on the street, and said, "Where you been?" I said, "I've been at the grocery store," and I popped the trunk and it was full of groceries. And he just looked at me and said, "Oh, okay." And this was before I even had I had a cell phone by then? I can't remember if I had a cell phone then or not.
Pager. You might have had a pager.
Then you didn't take us back to the pager days, did you? Yes, pager.
The pager.
Yeah. So they have different ways. I mean, it's that power and control again. And you're absolutely right. Wherever I move, I got to make sure the phone is with me, make sure it's on. Make sure if I'm at work, make sure I answer the phone when they call at work. Don't let me be in another part of the building or doing something like that. I called your job, you weren't there. Well, I don't sit in one spot with my level of work. I don't sit in one spot. And then that goes along with the requires constant check-in.
Yes.
That's on this slide. What I found as I was going back through and doing, I had forgotten about the abandonment part and the locking the victim in or out of the house. So those are parts that I had forgotten that are part of the abuse as well.
Yes, I see. And then sometimes, like even with, because you will see the different stories of people that were stolen and kept locked in basements and in cages and stuff like that. But to be locked in your mind is horrible. Because you're not free. You're constantly looking over your shoulder. You're too scared to just say hi to anybody because you don't know if that person is around watching you to see what you're doing, to beat on you that night because they thought you shouldn't have spoken to this person or said hello to that person. And it's like, and I like being a pastor's wife, in church, a lot of times you hugging people and speak, why did you touch them? You don't need to be touching on them. So you experience all those different things. And then the abuser keeping your basic needs from you just breaks you down even more so.
One thing that you mentioned earlier was being physically removed, but you're mentally still captured. So one thing that I want the viewers to remember is that just because a person is physically removed from an abusive relationship does not mean that they are mentally removed. They still have to go through their healing journey mentally and emotionally. That's not going to happen overnight. So if you are supporting someone who is a victim and a survivor, we need you to be patient with them.
Yes, very patient.
Because the research shows that a person has to leave a relationship 7 times, 7, before they actually leave for good.
Yes.
And isn't 8 the number of new beginnings?
Yes, it is.
So
7
by the
is
time they finish,
completion. I
right.
say 7 is completion and 8 is new beginning.
So by the time they leave that 7 times, so if they leave and they come and they're like, I'm done, and then they go back. Those of you who are the ones who's trying to help this victim, what you don't want to do is start talking down to the victim, talking about the victim, or talking about the abuser. Because I read some literature that said that if I'm in an abusive relationship and you're talking about my abuser, you know what that's gonna do? It's gonna pull me closer to my abuser and farther away from you.
The voice is supposed to be reason.
Right. So no matter how much you do not like the abuser, we got to keep it quiet.
Mm-hmm.
We have to keep it quiet, and we have to focus on helping the person who is in the situation. Be patient with them as they go through their healing process. So Tara made a comment. Your help and intervention in a single moment could be just that one major change the other person needs to begin to see their situation. So I'm gonna read that again. Your help and intervention in a single moment could be just that one major change the other person needs to begin to see their situation. So thank you, Tara, for that comment. And that is so true. That one time that you say something supportive, that may be that light bulb they need of, okay, I need to do this for me. If they have children, I need to do this for my children. But that can also go that one time that you say something negative or you say something that's not helpful, that could be the one time that really leads them into more self-destructive behavior. So we have to be careful with the things that we say. Any other ones on here that you want to address, Queen Veronica?
How you say all of them? I think we kind of covered all of them, like especially like with even not allowing for the basic needs. It's like it's just sad because they'll even. I remember my abuser used to make me eat off the floor. We'll put the plate on the floor and you sit down like a dog to break me down even more mentally. So they'll go through even those type of traumatic experiences to make you feel less than human.
Mm-hmm. They will use all type of tactics in here. Tiffany Mensa, she is also her mom was abused. So she's watching us via Facebook Live.
Yes.
And Tiffany, do me a favor, write the name of your book in the chat for me. My apologies. I see the cover of it. It's a beautiful cover, but for some reason, I can't think of what the name of it is. But her mom, so she watched abuse as she was growing up. So she wrote a memoir about domestic violence from a child's point of view. Yes, and it is beautifully written story. For some reason, I just can't think of what the name of it is right now. But she asked about how your healing process was. She said, did Veronica grow up in a home with domestic violence? And I told her yes. And she said, she's a part of the 40 million adults with me that grew up in these homes. How was her healing journey to address the childhood trauma? Listening to her has reminded me of how my dad did my mom. Wow. So if you want to give Tiffany another quick reinforcement or how you came through as a child.
Okay, well, as a child, because it went into my adulthood, my abuse, because he also abused me, Tiffany. And like with dealing with those things, it was a challenge because as I became an adult, I still had that child part within me of wanting to be treated like a child, wanted to be loved from my mother and father like a normal family. But I had to learn that our imperfections was my norm. And I had to learn how to get past that, Tiffany. And so for me, my healing journey was looking for me and learning to love myself, knowing that my parents can only give me what they had, because my mother was from a broken home and my father was from a broken home. My mother went through this process of wondering why her mom gave her away. Now, my mother had her, I think she was at 13 and she had her first brother at 12. So me as a child, I'm looking at saying, you can't actually keep two children. And so my father was sexually abused growing up by a younger cousin, well, older cousin of his. And so by going through those types of things, Tiffany, I had to learn to look within self. I had to forgive them. Well, I didn't have to, but I chose to forgive them
Right. We
because that
choose
was
to
something that
forgive.
I wanted to do as a part of my turn. Yeah, because sometimes that took a while because I wanted him dead. I used to think of ways of killing him, but I was like, but I don't want to go to jail, to be honest with everybody. Because it's like, I don't want to be in hell and then go be prison in hell. I just didn't want that. And so as I got older and then I got married, I was like, enough is enough. But going back through those childhood challenges, I started realizing of me wanting to be daddy's little girl, how much that affected me. And with the decisions of wanting to date or what have you, because you still was looking for love in all the wrong places when I had to find the love that I was looking for within myself because they couldn't give it to me. And I had to learn basically to parent myself. The things that I was looking from my parents, they couldn't give it to me. So I had to give it to myself. And that helped with my healing journey tremendously. And then it also helps with breaking generational curses because I know I no longer want to complete that cycle or continue that cycle. I want to end that cycle. So I hope that answers your question. If not, maybe we could talk sidebar and conversate because my book wasn't from a child's perspective. It was basically just talking about my life, a memoir about my life and the abuse that I suffered at God's diamond in the rough. Because when you're going through those rough stages like diamonds, you start off as this piece of coal. And to me, the
Mm-hmm.
abuse I experienced was nothing but coal. But God has polished me and shaped me into the diamond that I am today. And I thank God for that. And that's how I'm hoping that the conversations that me and you, King Queen Monica, continue to have helps to help shape other women and men into the diamonds that God wants them to be.
All right. Thank you, Queen. Now, did you see how she said the name of her book real fast? I want you to slow that down, Queen Veronica, and tell them the name of your book again.
The name of my book is God's Diamond in the Rough. And it can be found on Amazon or you can message me and I can send you a signed copy from me.
Very good. All right. So I see Tiffany, the name of Tiffany Mensa's book is Forgotten, Living in the Shadows of Domestic Violence. So
And I just know
there.
she said that was her too.
Yeah, she was that's what her book is, a memoir of her growing up in an abusive home. So we thank you, Tiffany. We thank everyone who's joining and for watching um, right now. So some of these signs we've already talked about. What signs will be noticed in a victim? Let's see, what have we not? So this one shifts from being a social butterfly
Mm-hmm.
to being
So,
isolated
yeah,
or
being a
being
recluse.
quiet
Yeah.
and withdrawn.
And just like you even said with changing the quality of work, because I know I experienced that. And I thank God because some people don't have that support from work. But I had to wind up telling, well, I didn't have to. I chose to tell my boss because to me, the one who was my boss at that time deserved better because I looked at her as not just a boss, but a friend. And when I opened it up and confided in her, oh, she was so mad. She was like, he just needs to do this and he just needs to, it made her angry.
Mhm.
But she supported me and they kept my work environment. And I thank God for my work family because even from human resources, because they had grounds that they could get rid of me because of the work quality. But they kept speaking into me.
Mhm.
And you don't get that on many jobs.
Right, that's a good point. So when an employer notices, so if you have people working for you and
Mm-hmm.
you notice that a person's quality of work shifted from being high level, mid-level, poor quality of work,
Mm-hmm.
it's time to sit down and have an open, honest, transparent conversation and just talk to your employee and find out what's going on. And in that, you have to make sure you have a trusting relationship with the people that you work with so that they can come to you when they have questions or comments. Thank you, Tara, so much for joining us. We appreciate you for being here. Trust me, we totally understand. So we thank you so much for being here with us. All right, increased absenteeism at work. We've already talked about wearing heavy makeup. They shift from having money to all of a sudden not having money. Nothing else has changed in their lifestyle as far as their work, but now all of a sudden they don't have money. And this is because that power and control, because the abuser is now controlling the finances.
Yes.
And then changes in how he or she communicates. So where they used to have open conversations with you, now they're short, they're brief, they're not as full of energy, unless they're trying to, continue to facade what's happening and, pretend that all is well. So they don't communicate with you as much as well. So let's see, before we move on, it says, Tiffany said, yes, I love that some jobs are now writing in their policies to support those who are impacted in domestic violence, which is a huge change from the 90s. Totally agree, Tiffany. So, and then the conversation needs to shift with how do we talk to the leaders so that they can start being more attentive and having these open dialogue conversations. I've been in nursing for years, and I have not gone to a nursing conference where we talked about domestic violence. That was one of the topics, or that was one of the breakout sessions that you could go to. Just like Tiffany said, they're changing policies in hospitals now, or not hospitals, policies in organizations now, where it's for those who are impacted in the domestic violence relationship. I've not gone to any women's, what do they call it, women's days at churches, where where domestic violence or intimate partner violence is one of the conversations. I have spoken at a couple of churches, but it's typically during October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. But this is a conversation I think needs to be had every month.
Year round.
Right,
and I'm
in October.
And I like that you said that, because pre-COVID, believe it or not, there was a minister who's over a conference down in our local area, the Iberville Ministerial Conference. And I'm going to be working with them where we can start having sessions like this, because there are some pastors that give incorrect information, and they'll use the Bible saying that you're supposed to stay in that relationship. And so we're trying to dispel those things that are being told to certain members, and to let them know that no, God does not want you to stay where there's abuse. That's not what he said. And so I'm glad, because there was, like I said, a minister that I'm in a connection with, that's the president over the conference, that wants to start that conversation down here. And maybe we can start reaching out and doing it virtually, because we were supposed to have it where it was in person, where people can have it, but we can still have it virtually. To have those conversations, especially in the church, because it goes on so much in the church. And we go and praise the Lord, glory, hallelujah. But yet those supposed saved and sanctified souls are hurt, bleeding, and torn within the inside.
The title of my first book, Broken Believer, No More. Now, the reason why it's Broken Believer is because I was a believer. And I'm still a believer in Christ, but I was totally broken. And you're absolutely right. We go to church, we praise, we say hallelujah, thank you, Father. But yet, 1 out of every 3 women, 1 out of every 4 men are victims of domestic violence. So if you're a pastor, if you're a leader in the church, our question for you right now is, how are you addressing intimate partner violence or domestic violence in your church? Are you willing and are you open enough to address intimate partner violence and domestic violence in your church? It can be ignored, or actually it can be ignored, but that's the problem. It is being ignored. And that reminds me, I was supposed to go to a church and speak to a women's ministry about intimate partner violence, because I'd spoken at their tea and they invited me to come back to discuss, to be one of their speakers about intimate partner violence. I got a call back from the president of the women's ministry saying the pastor said we can't have your topic. I wasn't surprised. And the reason I was not surprised is because several years before, this pastor had hit his wife. I wasn't surprised that he wouldn't let me come in and talk about it, or that wasn't a topic that he wanted me to talk about. But then on the flip side, I'm thinking, you already know this can happen because you've done it, but you don't want other people to receive the information so that it doesn't happen to them. What are we doing?
Perpetuating it.
What are we doing?
He's perpetuating the cycle, and most likely he's still doing it. That's why he didn't want you there.
And didn't want it to be discussed. All right, so supporting a victim. How can we support a victim, Queen Veronica?
Listening, just being there. That's how you say, for those that you are able to reach out to them and give them ideas about different places that they can go and about therapy, give it to them. But when you see that they're reluctant, just be in their presence, because it's better for you to be around to notice things, just in case you may need to call some outside support, than to not be around them.
And then when you say listening, we have to remember that listening is not always giving our input.
Information, yes. It's just literally listening, sitting there and being present. Yes.
Yep, it's not always about having something to say. Sometimes they just need to talk, and we just need to sit there and
non-judgmental listening at that. Don't judge.
Exactly.
Just listen.
You know, when you get into judgment, things can easily happen to you as well, because we already said domestic violence does not have a specific person that they target. It can target anyone.
Yes, it can.
Encourage him or her to seek counseling. This is one that, you know, and I'll speak for our culture. And it's hopefully the veil is being released.
Yes, it's being
where counseling is not a stigma anymore. You know, and I've gotten to a place now, and I've said it a couple of times on different videos and things. If you don't want to tell people you have a counselor, tell them you have a coach. But you need to get some help.
Or you don't have to tell them anything. Just do the work.
Right, and you're gonna have to do the work. We have to do the work. Right. We have the telephone number on each slide where if you need help, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. If you're thinking of suicide, call the suicide hotline. I have called that number myself because I needed to. I think I called one night at midnight because I needed to. Okay. So if you want some anonymous help, do that. Sometimes your organizations or your companies have free counseling available.
The EAP, Employee Assistance Program. Yes. And they will give you free counseling. I think you get, like, when you start, depending on the topic, each topic that you're covering, you get maybe at like 3 free sessions with the therapist, and then you can actually talk to a therapist on the phone, and they refer you if you don't know of anyone in your area. And also with Queen Monica or myself, I know that we're here if you just need a listen ear and you don't want to call that number, but call someone, because you matter.
Exactly, you matter. I've used our counseling at our job before. I've called and I made appointments. And I've gone to counseling, and I've, again, as you said, Queen Veronica, we have to do the work. I had to do the work to be healed and to be whole.
Yes.
All right, so then discuss safety avenues. And I'll be honest, I was naive at one of the workshop I went to years ago. And I said, well, a safety avenue, if I have a friend who's been abused, she can come stay with me. And somebody made a very good point. They said, if you bring the victim to you, even though I know my heart, and I'll still be like, come stay with me. If you bring the abuser to you, if you bring the victim to you, then the abuser can come there. And if they're in a really snap mindset, they can cause harm to the person that they're abusing, as well as cause harm to you for allowing them to come stay with you. So she brought a really good light to my thought process of, oh yeah, if they come to stay with me, then I'm also opening myself up to harm if their abuser gets into that snap mentality or that rage, and they come to my home and cause harm to me and the victim, as well as my children and so forth. So we can get them safety avenues and get them to a level of safety through shelters or somewhere else to help get them.
Yeah, because they have different nonprofits in the area. Like in our area, one of our non-for-profits is the Butterfly Society that I work with, or STAR. They have these different groups that you could reach out to. And also you want to, when we're talking about safety, you want to have a safety plan. You want to have duplicates of all your important papers, even if it's your children's papers. You want to have duplicates of birth certificates, social security cards, and have a plan, have a bag pack where if you have to get away during the middle of the night, something packed where you can run and do what you need to do, but have a plan in place.
So I'm reading some of the comments from Facebook. Sharon Thomas said that it is ignored. So we definitely have to be open to talking about it to keep others from not acting as if it's not happening. So what other comments do you see, Queen Veronica?
I saw one that says that they have to be out mentally first, then the body will follow. And sometimes, how you say, sometimes that works, and then sometimes, how you say, the body is taken out because it's in such a bad state from being beat, like shot at or what have you. And when you get into that situation, sometimes that's a eye opener to get you out to come want to say, well, no, enough's enough because I'm about to lose my life. But then some people go back right after. So all you can do is just a lot of prayer and supplication, because like we said earlier, it takes 7 times going back and forth on average before someone actually leaves that situation. And so we want people to remember, just always use supportive words, speak life into the victim. And then when you're listening to them, just ask them, well, what do you want? Because sometimes they may not even think about what they want because they're told what they're going to do.
Oh, that's so good. That is good. They don't think about what they want because they're so used to being told what they are going to do. They're so big. They're also told nobody else is going to want you. So you can leave, but nobody's going to want you. You're broken. You're beaten. You don't have any self-worth. Who's going to want you? So then they start thinking, well, I might as well stay because at least I have a roof over my head and I may get at least one meal a day.
Yeah.
So, all right. So what can you say?
How you say, I'm here for you. And you want to show them, not just say it, because that's what's most important. That's why I was saying about being present. Even if it's someone that you can't actually be in their physical presence, when they call, try to be there for them. Listen, let them know that you're concerned for their safety. And sometimes they say, well, girl, nothing's wrong, or bro, nothing's wrong, but something can actually be going on within them. And so you want to just listen to them and let them know that they're not alone and that you believe in them and that you matter. You want to continuously speak life into them. That's what you want to do. Not negative, not judgmental words. You want to use non-judgmental words. When you do say, make sure the words that you're saying are thought-provoking and positive, life-forming words. And just let them know that help is available. And be their support. Be their leaning post. Be their foundation when they feel like their foundation is cracked.
Ooh, that is true. Because as victims or as survivors, we are victims, but we are now victorious. We're victims, now victorious. That foundation can be totally cracked, but you know what? It takes God to help
Seal it
re-solidify
and
that
seal,
foundation,
yes, and seal it.
fill those cracks and all those empty places. Also letting them know it's not their fault, because we already know, what do the abusers say? This is all
It's
your
your
fault.
fault.
This is because of you. And that is not true. And then we also have to let them know that we believe in them.
Yes. Because
We believe
sometimes
them.
it takes your belief to get them through it, because they don't know how to believe in themselves. Because I know that how you say, even with my marriage, I kept saying it must have been something I did. It must have been something. It must have been something. Because why would this happen? So, but you just have to just let them know that you're not alone, that we're in this together, and that I'm here for you and I love you. And even how you say, when they may not seem to love themselves, let them know that they're loved and that they're matters. Remember to speak them positive affirmations into their lives and over them on a constant basis.
Exactly. Because it's, you know, sometimes when you're in those situations, your mind, your thought processes, the things that you think about are not positive. So you need somebody else speaking life into you, encouraging you, telling you, you know, I believe in you. I mean, and if we're open and you're going to be truly honest, there are days today when I'm not even in an abusive relationship that I sit and think, am I good enough for this? Am I worthy of this? And I have to start saying positive affirmations for myself, so that I'm not getting in a down state or allowing sadness or depression to come over me. Because even though you've come out of it, Satan has a way to try to pull you back toward depression. And as soon as we realize that that's what's happening, we have to get back up and start saying those positive affirmations, saying those scriptures, saying that I am worthy, I am loved, I am capable, I am beautifully and wonderfully made, I am a creation of Christ, I am above and not beneath, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, I am able to do this, I am smart, I am creative, I have the mind of Christ. We have to start saying these I ams.
And I am loved.
I am loved. How did I forget that one? I am loved.
Because how you say, when you learn to love yourself, I tell people all the time, the way I feel right now, it's almost like you're taking a breath of fresh air. And it's like, even when you're going through trials and tribulations, you have a different perspective on it. Because once again, life is happening for you, not to you. So it's like, what am I supposed to gain? Because I tell people all the time when I'm coaching, okay, always try to see, what am I supposed to gain from this? Because there's a lesson in everything you go through. So try to pull out the lesson that you're supposed to gain. Don't always go to the negative standpoint. Try to find a positive. Because one thing that I tell my children, always trying to find a positive no matter what. No matter what. And it puts you in a different mindset, and it puts you at peace, to believe it or not. At least it does for me.
It does. It puts you at peace. I mean, because when you go through challenges and you go through situations, it's not going to feel good, but it can be good for you if you take the lesson that's learned from it. So
that's like taking a shot. It don't feel too good, but you know that that medicine that they're giving you is supposed to help you.
Exactly. Exactly. So according to WebMD, some of the emergency escape plans for victims, how to set up car keys is one of the things they said, if possible.
Yes.
Make sure you pack a bag with keys, extra clothes. You already mentioned important papers. If you have any money that's available, and medicines, and keep that at a friend's house so that you can, you know, when you get to the shelter or wherever you're going, they have that they can bring to you. Have a plan for calling the police in an emergency. And I tell you, I did call the police one time. They never showed up.
And it's like, we hear people with the group that sometimes, from the police standpoint of view, sometimes when they keep hearing you call from the same number, because there is some police that work with our organization, it's like you have to start training them that, yes, you keep going back to that same house, and you may be getting frustrated, but it's your job and your civil duty to go there to keep protecting them, because if they keep calling, keep going.
Mhm.
And yes, as a human, you're like a child. If you keep falling into that hole, how many times you gonna fall? But you need to do these things.
Yeah, and oh, my bad. That was the first time I had called from that number, so it was quite interesting. Hold on, Queen, I think I muted you. Unmute yourself.
All right, I got it.
What were you saying?
I was saying that when you're going through those different things and you're having your coworkers, when you're getting your plans and stuff together, you want to make sure it's one person that you really could confide in, that you really trust,
Mm-hmm.
because that's gonna be how you say your ace in the hole when you running. And it's sad to say, but like with some the governmental help supposed to be that's there, sometimes it don't always feel as helpful when you're going through it, especially
Mm-hmm.
like when they're telling you when you get a what's that called, a restraining order. Sometimes people just look at that as a piece of paper, because I know a lot of people with restraining orders. Now, yes, should you get it? Yes, to have a paper trail, but you want to have someone that you can talk to have your plan, your bags, and everything packed, and you try to do it in a not so conspicuous way, where if somebody may be having you followed, or she may be having you followed, where it's hidden. And then even with your children, you may not want to tell them because they may blurt something out that don't need to be blurted out,
Mm-hmm.
so that you could be prepared when you need to get out of it. Because how you say, there is a way out, and we know it because we've done it.
Yeah.
But
And
it's work.
yeah, for me, what now that I reflect back on it, and I've been reflecting back on it, I could have easily gotten out of all the relationships that I were in that were unhealthy, that were abusive. I could have I could have easily gotten out, but for whatever reason, I just chose to stay. And that belief was, he's going to change. That was my belief. And when I look back on it now, I'm thinking, I could have gone to the airport, applied to be a flight attendant, wouldn't have to worry about having any place to stay. And I could have been just gone at 18 years old, at whatever age, and just living that life versus being abused and beaten. But now that I, looking back, I'm like, I had so many opportunities of things that I could have done differently to get out of that abusive relationship. And I'll tell you, the first one I got out of, I got pregnant with my oldest son.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what finally released me from that one. I was like, because I'd already had a miscarriage in that relationship that happened after a fight. And when I got pregnant again, it was like, you know what? I've got to protect myself and protect my baby. And that was 29 years ago, because he turned 29 earlier this month. Tiffany said there's heightened fear now with all the racial tensions. This cause is going to result in life or death. So yeah, with all the racial tension that's going on, because I think she's going back to when I said I called the police and they didn't show up.
Yeah.
And then that was, that was from a different number. So I was really surprised. I just sat there and waited. They didn't show up. So, and then it said, the last one here is know where to go and how you'll get there. So, and then the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence has a safety plan that's really outlined very good with check boxes to help a person develop a safety plan. One of the other things that I remember going to a violence awareness event that one of the police officers said, but it's in here, to make sure you have your important papers like your birth certificate, your social security card, all of those records, to make sure you have those available in your important papers when you get ready to go. And then we listed some references here for anybody who wants to, for the resources that we used in our presentation on today. So hopefully, we provided tools, we've provided resources, signs. If you notice somebody's behavior changing or any of the other signs that we mentioned today. Please be open and honest and conversing with them.
Yes.
And then I want to encourage you also, make sure that you're having open dialogue with your family, with your friends. We get together right now, we're getting together for Zoom birthday parties, Zoom celebrations, Zoom this, Zoom that. How about get together with a group of girlfriends, or the men get together with a group of men friends, and have an open, honest dialogue about domestic violence, intimate partner violence.
Yes.
You know, if you are a victim and you've not shared it with anybody, you've not told anybody because of fear, because of judgment, we encourage you to please get some support, get some help, because you're worth it and you're valuable and you're needed. I'm going to share this, and then Queen Veronica, I'll yield the floor over to you. One of the things that I had to share with my sons before my book came out was that I had attempted suicide. And I remember my youngest son asking me, well, what was supposed to happen to us? Now, when you're broken, you really don't think about other people. You're selfish and you're just thinking about you. My thought process was, and they know this, my thought process was, okay, my boys are grown. They've got a life going on for themselves now. They're doing fine. They'll be fine without mama. But Queen Veronica, when I tell you, my son said, and I still see the expression on his face, he said, what was supposed to happen to us? In that moment, I knew that I was needed. I knew that I was valued. And I knew that I was loved. And regardless of whatever else was going on in my life, I needed to be here for my sons. I needed to be here for my babies. That no relationship, no amount of hurt, no amount of pain, nothing in my past would ever make me want to take my life again and take me away from my beautiful sons. Because I love them absolutely too much to put them through that. It's not worth it. So if you're thinking of suicide, it's not worth it. You're valuable and you're needed. Queen Veronica?
To piggyback off of that, because you don't think about those things. And at the time, I didn't have my birth children, but I had my children that I was tending to with the choirs. And one of them said that I'm glad you was not successful. And I had another one tell me that they wanted to hurt me for wanting to hurt myself, because you could have came to us because you do so much for us. And I never really paid attention what I did, because I just did it because I loved them. But I didn't love myself. And when I had to have the conversation with my children before my book came out, they're much smaller. And I wanted them to understand that it's not being written out of hate. It wasn't being written out of anger. It was being written to help someone else. Because God did not allow me to live through the things that I've been through, because the medication that I took, like I said, I shouldn't have been alive. I was on antidepressants and anxiety medicine. I took about 3 or 4 bottles of them, complete bottles, and a whole bottle of liquid codeine. My brain is fried after I took it. I have no memory of that event. Like you said, that really touched home when you said that you wasn't meant to remember. I was told I was acting sporadically. I was told I was acting out of my mind. And the ironic thing about it is that I told my abuser, my birth father, I remember this, that you will hurt me no more. If he wouldn't have kept coming back into my room, I would have laid there and died. But they came and they checked on me because something, I don't know, besides it was the voice of God that actually moved them. They were the ones that brought me to the hospital. And being in there, it was like a breath of fresh air. And it was sad that I felt that I needed to take my life to just live. That's a part of my life that I don't feel too proud about. But it's a part of my life that I have to tell on various platforms because I know that there's another woman, man, boy, or girl feeling the same way. And I just want them to know that they matter and that you can heal after this journey. I am still on my journey, but I'm not where I used to be. And that's after living through 28 years of it.
Thank God we are not where we used to be.
And it's how you say it is possible. It is very possible. So if I had to talk to that little girl, it's you being abused right now.
Talk to the little girl. Yes, ma'am.
I want to let that little girl know that, baby, it's not your fault. You could not control what happened to you, but you can control what you do with what happened to you. That's the difference. You couldn't control what somebody else's decision was to hurt you, but you can control how you respond to the hurt. I no longer choose to react, but to respond differently. So for every woman and man that's out there, I want you to choose the way you respond. Don't just react. It's time to get out because you matter. Love yourself to life.
Yes, yes.
Literally, love yourself to life till you can start breathing again. You can feel the breath in your body because there's so many people that are in abusive relationships that are walking around dead, living in mansions, but are not happy.
They're going through the motions.
Yeah.
When I was in my darkest and my most broken state, that's when I understood the statement, going through the motions. And that's all it was just going through the motions. So, and you know, I truly appreciate you for saying, let me talk to the little girl inside. Let me talk to the little girl inside. So I'm gonna put our contact information up here for if anyone wants to get in contact with myself or Veronica Pryor Faciane. Yes, I love that.
Yes.
So if you want to get in touch with either one of us, we have our contact information here. You're welcome to reach out to us. You're welcome to call us, to connect with us. And I'm going to read a few more comments here. Joycelyn said, that's right, paper trail, a step in the right direction so that we can make sure we have a paper trail with the, help me, Queen Veronica.
I'm trying to find it right now. I see
restraining order. With
yes,
the
restraining order, yes, with the paper trail.
Yeah, Jaleesa said this was good, needed. Blessings to you ladies. Thank you, Jaleesa. Courtney, thank you. Courtney Jade is on here. Dr. Gaines, she is a licensed professional counselor.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not correct. Dr. Gaines has her doctorate in psychiatric mental health.
Yes.
So she's an expert in helping people with mental health as well. And she also said, encourage children to speak up regardless of the consequence. Mask well, especially now during the pandemic. So yeah, that was one of the other things that you mentioned, Queen Veronica, was that we can pretend and we can wear masks. I was a master at wearing the mask. And, you know, I finally just decided to take the mask off. So any other comments or anything that you see, Queen, before we close out for today?
Yeah, I'm gonna say one more because I see Courtney when she was saying about encouraging children to speak up. I do encourage children to speak up, but most important, I encourage adults to listen. Because there are some adults that when the adult comes, when a child does speak up, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. Oh, they saw something on TV to try to brush it off. But I want you to use, as it said, with to kind of bring a little light to it, your spidey senses from Spider-Man. If you get that tingling in your gut that this child is not making this up, please believe them. Because they may be coming to you little and they may can't really explain. Because one of my aunts started younger than 5, but that's when I was able to remember. So pay attention, because we are our children's future. And you don't know the effect that you can have, or the impact that you can have on just listening to a child, because you're important.
You know what? In the hospital world, if a woman comes in or someone comes in and says that they're a victim or that they've been abused, and this is just really in any world, whether you believe them or not, you have the right to report, or you have the obligation. Let me change that. You have the obligation to report. So whether you believe them or not, it needs to be reported, because you don't want that one time to be that you didn't believe somebody and then something happens and it falls on you, that they reported it to you, but you didn't say anything.
Yes. Because some people feel that they only work by them working in certain situations, like you a nurse, with the school system. Sometimes they feel that, oh, well, I'm only required with my job. As a human being, you should want to report.
Exactly. That's why I was saying, no matter who you are, you're obligated to report.
Report, yes.
So we want to thank you all so much for joining us today. We are at our time, but we want to make sure that, again, if you need us, please feel free to reach out to me, or reach out to Queen Veronica, and we are here to help you. We're here to listen to you. We're here to help guide you, provide you with whatever resources we can to help you along the journey, and to help you speak up and help you to be a survivor. We not only work with women, Coach Veronica, you work with men also?
Yes, I do. How you say, a few good men.
Okay, so I primarily work with women, but Queen Veronica works with men and women to help you move forward and to embrace life as you should, and help you to reach your goals, and help you to believe in yourself and the things that you can do. So once again, we want to thank you for joining us. Queen Veronica, I thank you so much for open, honest, transparent dialogue on today. You are a beautiful blessing. Continue to do the great work that you're doing with the Dove Network. And is it Dove Network, right?
The Butterfly Society.
Butterfly, what happened to Dove? Oh, that's Tiffany. Tiffany's the Dove Network. So the Butterfly Society. And then also want to encourage you, you all don't get caught up in perfection. It's just like I just made that slip. Some people will be like, I'll never do anything like that because I'll make a mistake. We don't need perfection. We need purpose.
Yes.
We need purpose. So Queen Veronica is the Butterfly Network.
No, I work with the Butterfly Society, and like the name of my company is New ID Life Coaching. But Butterfly Society is one of the organizations of domestic violence in my area that I'm on, one of the members that work with it.
Good, yeah. So I knew it was something in that area because you had a meeting with them the other night. So, all right, so feel free to get in contact with us. And again, Queen Veronica, I truly appreciate you for having this conversation with me today so that we can be a blessing and a help to others. Thank you all for joining. We appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye.